Hello everyone, Evasion here, and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a different video, and I'm actually going to be playing Feral Druid on the side. I actually played Feral Druid quite a bit before I played Rogue in Wrath of Lich King and original Cataclysm. And then around somewhere in the first season, I decided I was going to focus on Rogue, and the rest is history. So in this video, I thought I'd pick up Feral Druid again. I want to talk about the class changes, the talents that you'll use at both 80 and 85. Or rather what I am using at level 80. There's probably a few things you could switch around based on what you think is important. I'm going to talk about Mangle versus Shred and some opening rotation samples, kind of similar to the opening rotation videos you may have seen for my Rogue class videos. And also, I'm going to show some PvP examples at the end. If you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more, please be sure to give the video a like. And anyway, let's just hop straight into it. We have some new abilities. We have Stampeding Roar, which is basically another dash. However, this is going to be usable in both bear form and cat. And that's pretty cool. We have a kick now as Feral Druid. So I guess we had a kick before on Feral Charge Bear. However, you're no longer going to need to go to bear form to kick the target. This has a 10-second cooldown. It's going to lock the target out for 4 seconds. And also, it has a 13-yard range, which is kind of cool. We also gain access to Thrash and Bear. Bear form actually does some pretty decent damage in Cataclysm. So the times when you're forced to go bear form, you're not actually totally irrelevant. Of course, there's less damage than Cat. And I, of course, get parried on the train dummy. So basically, you have like that short AoE bleed. Some other things that we had previous that are now different. Savage Roar is no longer going to be the same. Beforehand, it was like a 30% damage increase, and it was really important to keep up all the time. In PvP, this is no longer going to be the case because in Cataclysm, Skull Bash is changed to make our auto attacks deal 80% increased damage. It's still obviously going to be a good damage increase in PvE, but it adds a little bit of flexibility as far as the rotation goes. This can still have its uses. If you're getting kited and you have combo points, you need to proc an instant cyclone. Yeah, we're keeping instant cyclone in Cataclysm, which is really nice. And you have points and you're getting kited. Maybe you're stuck in a route. That's the next change. Yeah, you could use Savage Roar to get that clone. But what I was going to say now is, yeah, we will no longer be able to shift routes. If you want to shift routes, you have to play Rested Druid. They decided in Cataclysm long time ago that basically Feral was really crazy at the start of Season 9, so they nerfed Feral Druid, and then it was no longer able to shift routes. Fortunately, what this means for us is we are able to deal a lot of damage still, which is pretty cool. Damage is fun. However, you are going to have a little bit harder time in some of those 1v1s. Also, we now have access to our Mastery ability, which basically, whenever we deal damage, we have a 50% chance to gain an Absorb Shield equal to a percentage of our attack power. And in addition to that, when we're in cat form, we have a different Mastery, which many of you may know already, that it increases our bleed damage, which is pretty cool. All right, one other change here, as well as hopping into the talents. In the first row, we have Feral Swiftness. This is the thing that increases our movement speed in cat form. This is also our replacement for being able to shift routes. Basically, we have Dash and Stampeding Roar will now remove routes. There's some macros I'll include later in the video that really help with this because I believe there's an issue, or at least there was an issue, where you couldn't use Dash over top of Stampeding Roar and vice versa. It would tell you a more powerful spell was active. And so these are the talents that I'm starting off with level 80. I will go over these here more in a sec when I show you the level 85 talents. If you want these for level 80, go ahead and copy it. Here are the glyphs for Feral Druid. I'm using these at level 80, and yeah, so anyway, Glyph of Berserk increases the duration of Berserk by 10 seconds. One other change too, I guess we'll throw that in there. Berserk no longer provides fear immunity. Definitely that's not as cool, but that was pretty busted. Also fit more with the times. But anyway, Glyph of Rip, 15% periodic damage. Nothing to really argue here. This is our best overall damage finisher that we have access to as a Feral Druid. And then the last slot here, you can choose between going for a Glyph of Mangle or you can go for Bloodletting. Shred and Mangle in Cat will increase the duration of Rip by 2 seconds up to a maximum of 6. This is probably better than Mangle in a lot of scenarios. However, if you're having trouble landing shreds because, since we can't shift routes now, you're stuck in routes more, your option to be behind the target is going to be more limited. So Glyph of Mangle is pretty good. If you look at the tooltips between Glyph of Mangle and Shred, they are actually very similar. The Mangle has the extra, it actually adds the percentage to the tooltip. So if you don't have the glyph on, they'll both say 540% weapon damage plus whichever. The only difference being Shred does gain 30% damage from having Mangle, as well as an additional, I think, 20% from Rend and Tear. So it does end up doing a lot more damage, but I mean, if you can't land it, you don't want to be overcapping energy. You would rather just get out more finishers, or more combo points, generate more combo points, get off more finishers, etc. For the major glyphs, we're going to be using Bark Skin, reduces 25% crit. Well, Bark Skin's active, pretty nice. Pounce here, you have an 8-yard range pounce. This can be really useful for getting off those tricky pounces before you get AoE'd out. And Glyph of Feral Charge just reduces the cooldown a little bit. There's not too many other options you could use instead of this stuff. Ferocious Bite, I want to talk about this too real quick. Ferocious Bite, it looks cool at first because you're like, oh, I can get a little bit of HP, kind of like a Rogue's Recoup. But you don't press this enough to actually get enough healing from this. So it's really not good. And in addition to that, Thorns is another one that could look good. You might think like, oh, with the new Thorns change, another change. Thorns is now inactive. It's not something we just keep buffed. This can make it have a 25-second cooldown instead of a 45-second cooldown. You're not going to be spamming this. It's not really good. It might be better right now in pre-patch than it will be at 85. So if you want to mess around with it, probably do it now. And Glyph of Fairy Fire, you could make an argument that you could use this. If I was going to slot this, I would probably slot it over Pounce. After you get used to playing with this Pounce, you're going to like it a lot. This would just be good for, you know, keeping rogues who get some distance on you, maybe in a battleground or something like that. Dash, I would say, is mandatory. Mark of the Wild's okay. And Unburdened Rebirth is what I'm using. If you want to do more battlegrounds, you could probably throw Aquatic Form in here so that you get the 50% increased speed with Aquatic Form. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about glyphs. I'm going to be using these for both 80 and 85. I will probably swap between Mangle and Bloodletting as I see fit. And let's talk about the 85 talents. I can actually go over some talents here now. All right, for the talents, I wanted to start off with this as a template. Usually the spec is going to end up being 35 points in Feral and 6 points in Resto. However, you do have some options that you could kind of mess around with. Personally, I like having Primal Madness maxed out. You get an extra 20 energy when you activate Tiger's Fury. And this is just really good because, I mean, more energy is more abilities. More abilities deal more damage. It's pretty simple. And the extra points, so basically you have 4 extra points you can throw in here. You're going to throw them likely in Feral Aggression, and you're probably going to throw them in the Primal Madness to look something like this. What you could also do, though, is you can choose to not have this. Maybe you're struggling with casters in Arena. You're playing something where you're just always the focus target and you're fighting a lot of casters. This Perseverance talent is here. Maybe throw the extra point in Primal Madness here. Your other option, too, if you had the same situation where you just need absolutely maximum melee damage reduction, you could choose to throw them in Thick Hide. You throw your extra point maybe in Primal Madness again. I think Primal Madness is probably the best thing to have here. If you're going full damage, though, what I would do is you just max out, Feral Aggression, max out Primal Madness, and that's going to be your overall best, most consistent spec. This is what I'm going to be playing. I'm going to avoid those other options, but if you are struggling with that, be aware that they are definitely things that you can do. Fury Swipes, really good in PvE, not so good in PvP because we don't have full uptime. You could choose to throw your points in there. I personally would not. The other talent I really want to talk about is Natural Reaction. So this talent is insane. This makes Feral Druids very, very defensively tanky in bear form. And yeah, it's 18% damage reduction. This is all damage. It's not just physical damage. So it helps against casters when you're getting focused as a Feral Druid in PvP. One of your best options is to go bear form to reduce the damage, help your healer out. We still do take increased healing while we're in cat form though. So there's something to be considered there. But in general, if your healer is in a CC chain, taking more healing is probably not as important as taking less damage. So consider the situation. Brutal Impact. This increases the duration of our bash and our pounce by 1 second. Just like rogues, pounce and maim do actually DR in Cataclysm. They didn't originally. I think they must have nerfed it partway through. I kind of forgot about that change, so I was really surprised when I got on beta to see that pounce and maim do DR. Something to be aware of. Stampede. What this does is after we use Feral Charge Cat, we're going to gain access to a free Ravage, which is really cool. So we can just use Ravage completely for free. This is really good in openers. You can kind of choose to throw this in a couple different places. I'll show you guys in the little opener section. Oh, one other important thing that I should mention about Feral Druid talents. Now, Tiger's Fury is actually going to increase our damage by 15%. So you're going to want to make sure Tiger's Fury is active when you're landing your rake and your rip, because throughout the entire duration of your bleeds, they're going to have that 15% damage increase, and it's going to add a lot of extra damage. It's a very, very important mechanic for Feral Druid's damage, and that is to be considered when you're, dealing openers and applying all of your bleeds. All right, for this opener, we're going to assume that we don't need Feral Charge Cat to stick on the target, so we are going to be using Feral Charge Cat to have that free Ravage, so we'll incorporate in the opener. We're going to use Pounce into Mangle, then we're going to hit Tiger's Fury, and your energy will get really close to capping here. We have to use Rake really quick, then we're going to use our free Ravage. This should land us at 5 call points, and we can then use Rip. And all of those bleeds will be applied during the Tiger's Fury. And yeah, you can use a Shred here in place of the free Ravage, and it still should function properly. You'll have enough energy to pull it off, but the extra Shreds that you've seen me get off after I landed the Rip, you will probably have one less of those, or at least the second one will probably be a little bit delayed because of that free ability. Here's an example where I actually use the Ravage after I apply the Rip. So in the case where you didn't have it, you could just use Shred here. I use Pounce, Mangle, Tiger's Fury into Rake. Then I use a Shred, then I use Rip, and then I use my free Ravage because I have the proc. Or you could use more Shreds if you have it, or you have Berserk up and you're able to pump Shreds. Also, a random thing, Berserk can be utilized in stealth. You can't use Tiger's Fury during Berserk, so it's good to use Tiger's Fury before you enter Berserk. Since Berserk lasts 25 seconds with the glyph, it's good to use it beforehand because you'll have it shortly after it ends, 5 seconds after. On screen here, I'll show a couple macros, both the cancelaura dash and Stampeding Roar macros. The Stampeding Roar macro should allow you to utilize this in both forms, so you don't need 2 different macros. And as well as a Skull Bash I added, so if you're in no form, it will shift to Cat. And if you're in bear form, it'll use the proper kick. Holding shift will attack your focus target with it, so you can focus kick. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Damage in pre-patch is absolutely crazy, but we go for the Pounce, the Mangle, Tiger's Fury into Rake. Then I use a Shred and I apply Rip. Target dies instantly, so, not really relevant right now, but at max level, this will be a great damage setup. Here we have a Warrior. We're going to do the same thing. Go for the Pounce, Mangle into a Tiger's Fury, Rake, use a Shred, and then I'm going to put Rip. I go bear form immediately because he starts hitting really hard. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. It's a little bit of a different video for me making a Feral Druid video. I'm pretty excited to play this class. It's been a while since I have played it quite a bit. And yeah, we're going to get into it. It's going to be a good time. Please like, comment, subscribe for more, and we'll see you again in the next video. Peace.